Oh, beautiful, beautiful song. What a week it has been for this country. A roller coaster of ups and downs, no matter which side you're on. It's been a time, as Simon and Beverly shared, that we've been in deep prayer. Prayer has been the place of center. It has been the anchor that for me has let me stay present, but with that spiritual viewpoint as much as possible. I really got in a whole new way the power of Jesus's message that says, be in the world, but not of the world. Be here, be present, live in the present moment, which is our mantra for this month, for the crown chakra of spirit, of Ayen and Keter, of intention and possibility, of prayer and connection with the divine. And it was interesting on Tuesday, Beverly, Simon, and I talked about how we were all felt like we were moving in this parallel world where we were engaged and yet not engaged, and didn't turn on any news at all during the day. We just held that prayer space, which we then did again on Wednesday and on Thursday. And normally Simon and I talk about the details of the theme of the message that's emerging as much as I ever know it on a Tuesday. And he begins to select music, and that too can shift. But we normally touch base on Tuesday and plan that. And we talked to each other, and he said, do you have any idea what direction you're going in? And I said, no. I said, today, all I can do is just be and pray. I can't do office work. I can't plan 2021. I can't think about Christmas. All I can do is just present, hold the and be here. And so that let's talk on Thursday and see if we have a better idea. And if not, we'll talk on Saturday and see how things evolve. And it was really interesting because I went home Tuesday and didn't get home until about 6:30, and then turned on, and Blaine was watching. Of course, the results began to come in. And so I went and did the same thing, and I found my anxiety starting to go up as to what's going to happen. And by about 9:15, I looked at him and I said, I can't do this anymore. I need to go curl up, put on my pajamas. I'm going to go read an escapist novel for about 15 minutes to shift a little bit. And then I'm going to go into prayer and meditation until I fall asleep. I need to keep centered in that place of peace and highest prayer. And I found myself doing that over the last number of days. What is it, 5 days it's taken? And what was fascinating, though, was Tuesday, I went to bed early, slept through, prayed, woke up in the middle of the night, recentered, meditated, prayed, went back to sleep. And Wednesday, I got really clearly what the message, a number of the pieces of the message. I got almost all of them on Wednesday afternoon. And I was like, oh, because at that point, we had no idea which way it was going to go. It was looking one way, and then the next numbers would come in, and it was just seesawing that whole day. And I realized something very interesting, which was that I needed to do the same message today, regardless of what the outcome was going to be. And I thought, okay, I'm on the right track because I'm doing my best to find that center place where we can all abide, whichever side we're on in regards to this. And I realized it very much echoed what I talked about back in 2016, which was when Donald Trump was elected and came in. And what a challenging election that was, with a lot of people with very strong opinions on both sides. And that election, half the country felt disenfranchised and brought Trump into the presidency. And then we found that this time the opposite has happened. And the disenfranchised for the last 4 years have their voices heard. And our country has done this forever. I didn't realize until Barack Obama was elected, and I was listening to a historian talk about elections through America's history. And he said that a landslide election is when there is anything from a 4% or higher difference between the votes on the two sides. 4%. I went back to double check the number because I remember being so amazed at 4% is what tips it one way or the other. This is part of how democracy works and evolves, and it comes from the original intentions set by our forefathers, our ancestors, our foremothers who went before us in setting forth what vision, what was the intention, the highest possible intention that they could set, and then we can grow into and evolve into as we all evolve over time and life. And they set an intention that was beautiful and profound that we are still living into. And I think that original intention is so important for us to all remember in these times, because although the counting is finishing up now and a winner has been declared, we will still be going through a process of figuring out how to harmonize extreme differences, how to find that middle ground that we can at least listen to one another and collaborate with one another in ways to create something even better. The Declaration of Independence says this: "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men and women are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortune, and our sacred honor." Gives me goosebumps. Did they come up with those words easily and sit down and just all together, okay, let's write it out this way? No. It was a huge struggle, both with the Declaration of Independence and then the Constitution. How do we create this? They had fights. They had fist fights on the floor as they were trying to come up with what this was going to be. They had duels. They threatened each other. They got passionate. They struggled. But they managed to finally find a common ground that let them say, this is where we're going to start with our intention. And then we've each got to figure out, how do we live into that? The Constitution begins with something incredibly powerful that I think is the mantra, not only for these times, but for the entire time that we have been evolving and co-creating a country together. It starts, "We the people, in order to form a more perfect union," and then goes and describes things. They didn't say some people, it was like the wonderful Lord's Prayer, our Father, not my Father, our Father, we, the people, all of us are part of this, we the people. And in order to form a more perfect union, our intention from the very beginning is to figure out a way to live in a world that is better, that honors one and all. Did they do it? No. Many of them, as we know, were slave owners. All of that is part of our history, that shadow and light, that our ancestors like us had their growth edges too, their cultural biases too, as do we. But they knew that the goal was to form a more perfect union. And they're setting forth these tenets so that perhaps that can happen. It's like we in Unity have our 5 principles. There's one power and one presence. The power of thought, the power of prayer. We are all divine beings, and we're here to co-create together. That's our foundation. And so as a country, we seek to form a more perfect union. It's an ongoing process. So much has happened over the course of history, and particularly so much in our lifetimes. The civil rights movement, that Edmund Pettus Bridge walk that ended up changing how we saw one another. And we're still growing in to that more perfect union that invited us into. Women got the right to vote. The women's movement. It is celebrating 100 years since women got the right to vote. And then for the first time, a woman is on a top ticket that has been elected. I loved it that she wore a white suit to honor the women, the ancestors, the suffragette movement that went before. Inclusive marriage and acceptance of each as a child of God, whatever their choices of identity and relationship are part of creating a more perfect union. We have common ground. We have more in common than we have different. If we can just remember that, we truly are one nation. Remember as a kid, we said the Pledge of Allegiance every morning in school, and it's one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. One nation. Under God was added later, by the way. Indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Not for some, for all. That's what we promise and pledge each time we say that. Our currency, e pluribus unum, one nation from many people, and on it in God we trust. It has been a wild ride, but it's not the first time. We've gone through periods of challenge before. And I think the thing that has held us together individually and collectively is a belief that we truly are the people and that we can create a more perfect union, that we can pledge to one another our lives, our fortunes, and our honor, and that all have the same rights to pursue life, liberty, and happiness. Clarissa Pinkola Estes is one of my favorite people, and it was so wonderful. This week, Barbara and Bob sent me another copy of the talk that I've drawn this from, and we actually include part of this piece in our Unity brochure that we give out to people about who and what we are. Here's how she begins. And I want you to think of the founding fathers, of all of the different groups over the course of our history. Ours is not the task of fixing the entire world all at once, but of stretching out to mend the part of the world that is within our reach. Any small, calm thing that one soul can do to help another soul, to assist some portion of this poor, suffering world, will help immensely. It is for us to realize we may not know which acts or by whom will cause the critical mass to tip toward an enduring good. What is needed for dramatic change is an accumulation of acts, adding to, adding more, continuing. Doing small acts with great love. One of the times in which our country was terribly polarized came, of course, with the Civil War in the 1800s. It was a time of literally taking arms against brothers and sisters, sometimes within their own family. We are in a time of great polarization now. There's polarization within families and within our country, within our world. And one of the pieces that was profoundly important comes from Abraham Lincoln, who was the president that was elected in 1861 and then again in 1865. President in a time of incredible vision, of what in his first inaugural address from 1861. Hear these words for us here and now. We are not enemies, but friends. We must not be enemies. Though passion may have strained, it must not break our bonds of affection. The mystic chords of memory to every living heart and hearthstone will yet swell the chorus when again touched, as they surely will be, by the better angels of our nature. And then in 1865, his second inaugural address, with malice toward none, with charity for all, with firmness in the right. As God gives us the right, let us strive to finish on the work we are in, to bind up the nation's wounds, to care for him who shall have borne the battle, and for his widow and his orphan, to do all which may achieve and cherish a just and lasting peace among ourselves and with all nations. A more perfect union. There's an old Irish proverb that I love. It is in the shelter of the people of each other that the people live. It is in the shelter of each other that the people live. We are sanctuary and Sabbath and shelter. I'll close with a piece that is in our Unity brochure that comes from Clarissa Pinkola Estes. Hear these words and hold them this day and in the days yet to come As we, the people, seek to form a more perfect union, may we do it with healing and grace and seeing the face of God in new ways. One of the most calming and powerful actions you can do to intervene in a stormy world is to stand up and show your soul. Soul on deck shines like gold in dark times. The light of the soul throws sparks, can send up flares, builds signal fires, and causes proper matters to catch fire. Struggling souls catch light from other souls who are fully lit and willing to show it. If you would help calm the tumult, this is one of the strongest things you can do. So I invite you this day and in the coming weeks, let your soul shine on deck. Hold the light for yourself and for others as we celebrate and live in the present moment, that high intention and vision with which this experiment we call the United States of America began with. A diverse group of people who came together in unity to create a better world. Centered in God, we co-create a world that works for all. Centered in God, we co-create a world that works for all. Centered in God, we co-create a world that works for all. And so it is. Om, Amen, and blessed be.